Welcome back to the channel, and I usually say welcome back to Workflowy, but in this case it's welcome back to my brain. I'm about to talk about something I've been thinking about that applies to Workflowy as a component. So I've been working on developing a board game that is a simulation tool for developing a deeper understanding of project management techniques and how margin in project management changes the way that you process information. I've been working on that for a while. And as I've been learning about board game creation, I have started to see the mechanics of board games as actually their own language. So you take, in the case of what I'm doing, a real life engagement, a meeting with goals and an agenda and an outcome that either is successful or not successful. And then I'm translating that meeting into a round in the game and attempting to translate the components of the important components to the project manager of the outcome of that meeting, and understanding who the stakeholders are and what the value of what's done in that meeting is to the overall project. So going from thinking I'm creating a game to understanding, in this particular case, I'm creating a simulation of a real world situation, started to help me understand that all of these mechanics of dice or other ways of including randomness in the game, the stakeholders that are represented by cards with certain values on them, and certain parts that those cards contribute to a particular situation, situation cards, problem cards, tokens that represent different things are all tools that are used to represent something in the real world. And if you do it right, then they represent them in a balanced way, in a fairly accurate way, even if they are in some ways a summary of things or a generalization of something. So in a game, you can have a little token that represents, say, a clue, like in Arkham Horror. It's a clue. You never know what the clue is about, and when you solve it, you don't know how you solved it. All you need to do is solve the clue, and then you move the clue out of that room. And so it's just a generalization. You don't need to know what exactly the information was that clue represented. So in a project management situation, the project manager doesn't necessarily need to know what exact fixture that a customer selected, or even the whole group of fixtures, or even all of the selections across the whole entire job, including flooring and siding and cabinet style and colors, all of those things, to the project manager while he needs to manage the information. It's just the fact that there's information there to manage that's of key interest in discovering how to project manage that job. And so I realized in a game setting, I can just generalize that. I don't have to be specific about anything as far as the specifics of the house or the selections of the homeowner. I can create a generalized summary of that and then translate that into the game. And that's the level at which I'm wanting to develop and translate. I've been discovering that the more I understand about the different kinds of game mechanics, the more tools I have, or the more vocabulary I have to translate real world situations into the game situation. I'll get to the point, which is actually Workflowy related, here in a minute. So I have been going in and watching, even though I'm not going to buy these $50 to $100 to $200 games right now. I do want to understand the game mechanics, so I've been watching tutorial videos on games and playing a few games and collecting these tools that represent things that you can use to translate situations into a game scenario. So I've been thinking about that. And then I suddenly realized that's exactly what's happening when you create systems or use productivity tools like Workflowy. Those are the mechanics in Workflowy: the mirroring, the nodes, the indentable nodes, the backlinking, the ability to share, the tagging. All of those are just abstract mechanics. Also, at a different level, the concepts in things like Getting Things Done by David Allen are tools and techniques to translate things that are actually taking place around you in your house or in your job into a simulation of that. And that was the key. I'm very curious where I'm going from here. This is just the beginning of me developing this game and other games, and also understanding that when I look at my Workflowy, what I'm seeing is a simulation of something that's outside of Workflowy. And while I abstractly know my calendar is not actually time passing, so if I, zoom into my calendar, those things are not real. They're just a simulation of something, of a meeting or an event or something that I need to do on a certain day. So it's a simulation, and the more tools that I have and understand, the better I can simulate what's going on in the real world and applying it to my Workflowy. And so my task list, I wish that the fact that I have a task list actually got things done, but all it is a simulation of kind of a map in my mind of the things that need to be done in certain orders for certain goals and that kind of thing. They don't ever get anything done. The fact that it's on a list, so I can, in the same way that when you play a game, even if you're playing a simulation game of project managing a home being built, a home out in the real world is not actually getting built. So I'm curious to know if you look at project management systems like Scrum and GTD and Para for personal knowledge management, that kind of thing, and understand this is a simulation, and these are like vocabulary and grammar rules that we can use to translate something in the real world into a simulation, and then we can manipulate it there. So hopefully we'll be able to manipulate the situation in the real world in order to accomplish a goal. Fascinating concept to me. And that's helped me understand. So I'm reasonably fluent in Spanish. Fluent might not be the right word. I'm comfortable in Spanish. And so when I've traveled internationally to Spanish-speaking countries, I feel very comfortable there, even though I don't know all the conjugation of all the different tenses of the verbs, and don't. I have a reasonably good vocabulary, but I certainly don't have an extensive vocabulary that would allow me to do more and more stuff in Spanish. But for the things that I typically interact with people about, I'm fine, and I can figure out a way to communicate what I want to communicate. The more vocabulary that I have in Spanish, and the better understanding I have of the different verb tenses and how to conjugate the different verbs in different situations, if I'm put in a situation of being a translator, and somebody's talking to me in English, and then I'm translating in Spanish and vice versa, the more vocabulary and grammar that I understand in both languages, the better I can translate, and the more productively I can translate. And so that's helped me understand that when I'm reading books on different systems, different knowledge management systems, or different productivity systems, or just kind of theory of productivity, I'm not really doing anything other than collecting vocabulary. And then I can look at the tools at hand and see what I'm trying to accomplish, and then decide how can I best translate that into a simulation that actually enhances and creates margin in the system for me. And the fact that I can visualize things that way or simulate them that way may actually help me make better decisions and deploy the actual real-world situations in order to accomplish goals better. So anyway, it's just a conceptual thought that I've been playing with that may be helpful to some of y'all. So I hope that helps. Have a good day.